Hi guys, this is Miss Cuban here. I'm talking about proportions today. Proportions, what are they? Well, proportions is just a fancy word saying equivalent ratios. Okay, so proportions are equal ratios. You have already done some of these. You have learned this already. What you may remember if you connect the dots, that ratios can be written as fractions. And if they can be written as fractions, then really we're just making equivalent fractions. Okay? This is not hard stuff, okay? The hard part is setting it up. But solving for a proportion, you're just making equivalent fractions, okay? But you got to keep in mind that they're not fractions, they are ratios. We just make them look like fractions to help us, okay? So let's figure out, how do you set up a proportion? Well, when you read a word problem, I need you to first draw what looks like an H chart. Draw a H chart. Okay. This will help us label our parts and make sure when we're setting it up we have the same numbers that go together on the same side. After you do that, you can solve it two different ways. Okay. So you can solve by using equivalent fractions or equivalent ratios, okay, and that means the missing part, solve for the missing part, or you can solve by, and I'm keeping it step 2 because you get to choose, you can solve by doing cross multiplication. You can cross multiply. Okay. Now, let me show you an example. Okay. Okay, so here's an example problem. At King Middle School, the teacher-to-student ratio is 3 to 42. If there are 504 students that are enrolled at the school, how many teachers are there? Okay, so if we do step 1, and that is to draw an H chart. So I'm going to draw what we call an H chart. It's going to help us label our parts. Okay, we know from the beginning this is teacher to student. So that means I need to put teacher to student on the left side. That is just a label. Okay. The next thing we do is we write our known. This is our known ratio. Okay, it's what's given to us. We know that it's 3 to 42. So we're going to put 3 teachers to 42 students. Okay. The next side, the right side, is our unknown. It's what we are looking for. Okay. They give us that there are 500 students that are enrolled. So there are 504 students that are enrolled. But we want to find out how many teachers that would be. So if it's unknown, we will put a variable. A variable is any type of letter you want to choose. Okay? A variable just means that we put a letter in place of a number. Or we could put a number instead of a letter. So I'm going to put X because that's the most common unknown variable that we could put. Okay, this is just setting it up. We put our label as teacher to student in orange. We put our known value in the problem that said 3 to 42. We put that in our known place. And we put our unknown as X to 504. The second step is we solve. And we're trying to solve for X. Okay? And now this is a proportion. It tells us it's a proportion. What we know about proportions is that they're two equal ratios. So that means these are equal. Okay? So we can solve by doing an equivalent ratio, or we can solve by doing cross multiplication. Okay? Now I'm going to try to do both, and I can show you how this works. Okay, this is our part where we set it up. And now we're going to try to solve it using equivalent fractional ratio. And I asked myself, how many times does 42 go into 504? Well, that's a big number, and I don't know my facts, so I'm going to multiply it out. 42 times 2 gives me 84. 42 times 3 gives me 126. So let me keep going. I know if I multiply by 10, it gives me about 420. So let me try a little bit higher than 10. Okay, so what about 42 times 12? 4, 8, 0, 2, 4, and I get 4, 0, 1. Oh, I get 504. So 42 times 12 gives me 504. So whatever I do here, I need to do to my numerator. So 3 times 12 gives me 36. And that tells me there are 36 teachers for 504 students. Okay, that's using equivalent fraction ratio method. Sometimes you won't be able to do that. Sometimes it will not easily, 42 will not evenly go into another number. In that case, we have to do cross multiplication. Okay, so cross multiplication, we write 504 times 3, and we set it equal to, because if you remember right, the proportions are equal, so we're setting it equal to 42 times x, okay, and that's setting up cross multiplication. The next step is we simplify what we wrote down. So we have 504 times 3, so we have 504 times 3, 12, 1, carry my 1, 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, 3 times 5 is 15, so I have 1,512, and it's equal to 42x. Now, when I write x next to the number, that means to multiply. Okay, this means to multiply. And you will see that more when you get towards pre-algebra, 7th grade, 8th grade, and higher. Okay, so now, how do I get x by itself? Well, if I'm multiplying, that means I need to do the opposite, the inverse. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. So that means I need to divide by 42. That way I can get x by itself. So I divide by 42 on each side. So I'm left with x is equal to, well, now I need to do my long division. So I have 42 goes into 1,512. I know that 42 times 3 gives me 126. We did that earlier, so we got 126. We subtract, and that tells me that this 5, 4, 3, 2, 25 left over. Bring down my 2. And I know that 42 times 6 gives me 252. Okay, so that tells me my answer is 36. So x is equal to 36. That means there are 36 teachers for 504 students. And that is a second way to solve a proportion. Okay, remember the key words is proportions are equal ratios, and you need to be able to find the missing part, and they are equal. Okay, I can't stress that enough. They are equal ratios. Proportions are equal ratios. Maybe if you keep repeating it, it will stay. Proportions are equal ratios. Okay, so I hope this helps you today. I want you to do the steps, label your parts, draw your H chart, and solve for the missing part. Have a good day.